Hey, Daniel, would you give me a picture that is a little bit Mormon? More Mormon. Make it more. Make it more Mormon. Little bit more. Just a teach more. Yeah, more.
Start us off, Home Slice.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, well.
Microphones are working.
Yep, everything's
Check,
good.
check.
We have new
Check,
covers.
one,
we have
two.
new covers. Can't hear Glenn and Travis breathe.
Well, I mean, if you really try, it should help.
Just because I'm winded. All right.
That's because I have this.
Welcome to the Extra Mo Show, and I'm Travis. This is Glenn, and we're here to, investigate our own testimonies, look at things, challenges, foibles of prophets and leaders in the church, and hopefully to strengthen our community, our friends in the gospel, our followers of Christ. I don't know. What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah.
Well,
We're just here to...
I've got a quick question, though.
Oh, yeah.
To
Go
start
ahead,
us,
Dan.
to
Start us off.
Let's hear it.
I gotta set the stage just a little bit though for this, so there's some context.
Okay.
Okay. So I am a dad, right? I've got 4 boys, right, and all the way from 15 to 8.
Okay.
Right? And there was a time where obviously they were a lot younger. But as a dad and as a husband, I'm like, man, I got to protect my family. But I've always had this like internal conflict that I've had to try to figure out. And so that's where my question is. And this is the question.
Okay.
I can tell. I can already tell I'm going to like this.
When, as a husband, as a father, right, I carry a weapon with me everywhere I go, especially when I'm with my family.
All right.
But as a Christian, as someone who doesn't want to hurt anyone, but I also don't want my family to be hurt either, right? So this is where the question is it too risky or overly risky to carry a weapon with you with the intent to use it if your family ever, something happens to them, and potentially, be put in a situation where you have to use it and you have to take the life of somebody else, and then having to live with that as like a Christian? How do you, I guess, align your moral values with the idea of potentially taking someone else's life?
I think that's an interesting one. For me, on the face of it, I think you can just kill people that are trying to hurt your family. I don't think that's totally okay. And I think, even war, if it's like a defensive war, and even, a lot of our wars, you don't know. It's side the morals are on, and there's good people on both sides, all that jazz. But I would say the thing that pops into the exception always comes to my mind, and I'm thinking of the anti-Nephi Lehis, and they were converted.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'd have to study it more, but was it a greater conversion to true disciples of Christ where they buried their weapons and then they were attacked and they just laid down and they just were slain? And then and the story is that then more people were converted. So, I could see that being really fabulous too, I guess. Maybe that's quite a statement. But then the next evolution of that is their sons went to war.
Exactly.
The 2,000 stripling warriors. And what were they doing? They were defending their liberty. And so liberty seems to be a big factor of it. So maybe even liberty's higher than life of something you need to defend, like true liberty. I don't know. If someone breaks into my house, though, right now where I'm at, I will shoot them, I think. I might just attack them with my fists.
You're a big guy. You could probably get away with that. What about you, Glenn?
This is interesting because I actually, that's already 8-9 years ago, I sold a car to a customer. The next day, he showed up to my dealership really angry, saying that I screwed him on this car and all this stuff, which was funny because it was like one of the nicer, better cars I had there. And I'm like, hey, man, I could tell he was on something, like, you know, which is weird first thing in the morning to be on. I don't know. The guy was
He was
out
like
of his,
high on life.
he was like he was out of his mind, and he's encroaching on me. And dude, honestly, I concealed carried all the time, so I had a weapon on me. And for the first time, I realized, oh, if this guy does anything, I literally have to draw my weapon, because if we fight and somehow he bests me, he'll kill me. He'll find my weapon.
Right.
So it put me in this place where I had to like trick him, and I felt like I was kind of inspired on what to say and do. I said, hey man, let me just reach into my bag. I have the card to the shop that'll just take care of it. Just give me a minute. And he's like, yeah, you're effing right. You know, and he literally is bumping me with his chest. I'm breathing right here. So I go, dude, give me some space so I can get it. And I back up and I pull my weapon on him. And honestly, man, I was like, I have to kill this guy. And I was like freaked out. But luckily he saw the gun and he freaked out. So I said, get on your knees right now, or I'm going to put a hole through the back of you. These are hollow points. And he gets on his knees and he's like, okay, just put it away. I said, I'm not putting it away. And I call the cops. Long story short, it's Provo cops that don't see guns a lot. They come to my dealership and draw on me, dude. And I'm like, they're like, put your gun down. And I'm like, I don't know if this is like your guys' first day on the job, but there's a dude that's high right here, and I'm on the phone with your dispatch, and the dispatch is relaying to them, and they're tell him to put his weapon down. I'm not putting a weapon down with this guy in here, you know? So finally I'm like, okay, I'm going to slowly, there's 6 guns pointed at me. And so, you know, I put my gun to the side like this, thinking, okay, I'll tackle him if he tries. Dude, he freaks out and panics and runs out the other door. They come throw me against the wall. One guy's got me against I could have sued their pants off of these guys. He's got his arm. I de-escalated after calling them all names and everything because I was livid pissed. And the first thing they're like, do you have your concealed carry? And I'm like,
it wasn't concealed, first of all.
First, do you know if it was concealed? No. Was it? Dude, no, I'm not talking to you guys. Get off of me. Like, get off of me. I'm the one that called you. That's the side of the story that doesn't matter. And anyway, I got in with the mayor of Provo at the time. I was so livid, pissed at these guys. But the point of the story was I didn't carry my gun to work after that because I didn't want to kill that guy. And I carried something that was bad. Like, I started carrying a tire buddy, which... I'll bash you over the head. I don't know how that's safer, but I guess it is. So I had to make that decision for myself. When it comes to my family, zero hesitation, man. I will do whatever to protect my family, and I hope I never have to do that, because having had a gun drawn on a human being before, I was like, please don't get up. Please don't come toward me. I don't want to have to shoot somebody. So for anyone who's done that, I feel really bad. But as far as like how I reconcile that with my Christian values, my first duty and covenant to my family is I'm your protector and your provider, and I'll do anything to, but that it's definitely as a guy who's been in a dilemma where I had to pull a weapon, I don't like it. I hope I never, I'm with Travis. If my door, something happens in a window or a door, I'm coming at you with my weapon, I've got a daughter in my house, but that's an interesting question that I've actually had to think about because I've been in that weird scenario. So very good question. But as far as like with Christian values, man, I feel like I almost feel like you're going to answer for not protecting those that trust you more than you're going to answer for protecting up till bloodshed. You know, people make their decisions, and you, as a righteous man with a gun, are the consequence of their decision. Yeah, I think. No.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good question, man. Yeah. Why are you asking that? Did you shoot someone this week? Are you on the run?
Yeah.
I neither can confirm nor deny.
We haven't seen producer Dan. This is producer Guillermo.
Yeah. Producer. Yeah.
We haven't seen him. No, we already have Guillermo on here. We need another.
I was like,
name.
Did we just throw Guillermo under the
Guillermo,
bus?
sorry, dude.
Trump, don't deport Guillermo.
No, Guillermo's good stuff, man. He's good people.
Yeah, you'll never see me. I'm just the voice in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in through the internet. He's
Glenn,
in South America.
I'm curious today. What are we going to talk about today? What is maybe some of the things you want to challenges that you see people struggling with, and how is our topic related to that?
I want to start off with, and I want to know, like I challenged everybody last week, or you did, or one of us did. Do something where you feel the Spirit this week. So I've probably already said on this podcast, one of the main reasons we've started doing it is I made a commitment to my son Noah when he went on his mission. I said, I want to use this as a time that we're apart from each other to bond over the work. And so I said, I'm going to be as anxiously engaged in the work as you are, as best as I can, while I hold a job and everything.
That makes sense.
So we started this. I get up in testimony meeting almost every other time, and I know everyone's probably in my ward sick of hearing me. But I'm just trying to do my part, to bear testimony. But I also just do it with strangers all the time, talk about the gospel. And so I had a pretty cool experience Monday. So I'm in the car business, and we have whittled down our overhead to maximize profits. And one of the things I do now is instead of having a driver that helps me go drop cars off, so we drop cars off at body shops, franchise stores, upholstery repair shops. I restore cars, and now I take Uber everywhere. And so I'm at a paint shop up in Salt Lake and have to get back down to Orem, and I Uber. And this guy picks me up in a car, and he just seems like the nicest retired guy. A lot of those Uber guys they're bored out of their minds and they're retired. So I asked him, like, so do you drive a lot of Uber? Because he had a nice car. It was like it was a luxury car. And he's like, yeah, I do this 2-3 hours a day and get out of the house. I'm like, that's cool, man. We start talking. I don't know how it got to where he started opening up to me, but I'm kind of an open book with people. I'm not really guarded anymore. Don't really care what people think of me anymore. But if I can connect with people and make a difference in someone's life, so a lot of people open up to me now. But he starts opening up a little bit about his life, and he starts talking about his daughter that took her life. Oh yeah, we were talking about kids, and I talked about my kids, how many kids I had, 4 adult kids, and he talked about his kids, and he talked about this daughter who had a baby that she ended up taking her life, and then he talked about this disgusting custody battle he got into with the daughter's boyfriend or ex-husband or whatever to raise his granddaughter. Anyway, I could tell talking about his daughter who passed, really, he didn't want to bring that up, but for some reason he did. It kind of hurt him to talk about it. So I told him, what I had gone through with my son and how the doctors were preparing us to lose my oldest, and how there's just no way. I said, there's just no way that you could be prepared for that. I'm really sorry. And he says, it's okay. And then it kind of got somber. And then I said, but hey, are you doing okay? Like, is your family ever been able to find peace through that? And he goes, well, I think so. And I said, are you religious? And he goes, yeah, we're religious. I said, oh, cool. Can I ask what religion you are? And he's like, well, yeah, I'm a Christian. I could tell he didn't want to say he was Latter-day Saint or whatever. I said, well, I'm a Latter-day Saint. And let me tell you something, man. I said, I just want you to know that your Heavenly Father is aware of how much pain you went through. And he's just kind of like quiet, kind of like almost uncomfortable. I said, it's okay, brother. I'm Christian, dude. And, and I just watched The Chosen, and I told him, I said, I was really, really touched by the father having to hear his child say, that if it's possible, take this cup from me and make this go away. And as a father, how he couldn't. And I said, talked about Melvin J. Ballard's talk. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that, where he talks about how he theorizes that the father had to go to the farthest corners of the universe to not have to hear his son beg for that. And it's just a really sad thing. And anyway, he's like, yeah, Melvin J. Ballard. And I go, so you're a Latter-day Saint? He's like, yeah. And I don't think they're supposed to talk about that as Uber drivers, is what I think it was. He didn't want to like mention his religion. But, you know, I'm sitting there talking to him about this deeply spiritual stuff, and he's crying. And guys, I just thought it was so cool, man, that I'm just in a car with a stranger, and honestly, I was overcome with like brotherly love for this man that I didn't know. And I'm like, how many opportunities like this have we passed up on in life because we don't want to be, you know, like I promised my son, I'd be out there testifying. We don't want to talk about these things with strangers all the time. And here I am bonding with this guy, a brother in the priesthood, who knows the Melvin J. Ballard talk. He brings up who gave the talk, and he's crying with me. And I just thought it was so neat, you know, like, I hope that we are looking for all of those opportunities to, when we talk about faith, you know, crisis of faith and all that stuff, you have to build your faith too. Have these conversations with people, you know, share your testimony with people. I don't know why it mattered to me that I comfort my Uber driver as he's somber talking about losing his child, but it's just cool. We need to take advantage.
Can you imagine losing your child too? Just the gut-wrenching
I can't.
of it.
Brutal.
I can't even. With us, man, when doctors were preparing me for that, no, I can't do it. But anyway, that was kind of a cool. I talk about do something to build your testimony this week. Have an experience. That was my experience with a stranger Monday. So I don't know if you guys had any opportunities to, outside of church services, to do anything or have a spiritual experience or anything, but.
You know, it's kind of fun that we're in a group at work where we do a lot of coaching and training on Zoom. And so we have a partner in Florida, a partner in Virginia, and then, you know, South Carolina. There's a couple of other East Coasters, but we're the only like all Utah group, and we're all LDS. And so it's kind of interesting because it's not like as spiritual as what yours is, but I do think it's interesting that, you know, in our debriefs, oftentimes like the F words comes up and things like that. But the Utah crew, we don't swear usually. I mean, I've sworn obviously, but we keep it pretty clean, and
you're professional.
But now it's like we've been so consistent with it. Like they're starting to say the words less, and they notice that difference, which I think is pretty cool. I don't consider myself like a prude. I don't care about people swearing. I adopted a few kids, and so once that happened, I just started swearing. So I'm not like against swearing.
Like it's what you have to do it to get through the day.
Yes. yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. But it is kind of cool. And so then that example, then that show came out. God, what is it called? It's like rated hard R, about Brigham Young.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I watched the one on Netflix. Yeah.
Anyway,
about the Mountain Meadows thing.
About the Mountain Meadows massacre and things like that. And so it was...
That show cracks me up so bad, not to interrupt you, but when they have Brigham Young walk in the room and it's like they play like the evil Jedi Emperor from Return of the Star Wars music, like you just expect him to start breathing like Darth Vader, like...
It's like The Sopranos.
Brigham Young.
Yeah.
And you're like...
I haven't seen it. But... This other crew, they're really into it.
I'm trying to figure out why it was hard R. Oh, it's violent.
Super violent.
Yeah, super violent. Yeah.
And that's what I've heard from this other group. But it makes them ask us questions, and it's so we get to talk a little bit about the gospel in a work setting, which I think is pretty cool. Additionally, we coach this team. I guess I probably shouldn't say their name, but they do.
Don't say their name.
They do genealogy.
We can't get sued. The net worth of the podcast right now is negative $9,000.
Yes, we really.
So don't sue us right now.
Just wait. But it was cool. It's a 90-year-old company. They do research and they help people get their inheritance. Oh. And cool company. It's like, so they call people. It's a sales job kind of, but it's like, hey, you had a family member die that you may not know of, and they don't have a will. You're probably eligible for somebody who wants to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so
where are they out of?
They're out of Salt Lake. Out of Cottonwood. And but the cool part was they invited us for training. We did the morning training, and then we went to lunch. And it was Cinco de Mayo, and they pulled the food in, and then everyone in the company's like, all right, who's saying the prayer? And they said a prayer in a corporate environment. And I mean, it's like a nice office.
Yeah.
Like 50 employees. It's a real, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And I actually brought it up. He was like, well, let's just who we are. We don't want to offend anyone, and we get it. We have people who aren't LDS, and they're welcome to either participate or not participate. But this is who we are. And dude, the environment in the whole place was just cool.
Yeah,
it was just a really good vibe, and so maybe it wasn't like that, but it was like kind of the gospel in action. Is we set an example as a group for other people, and then I noticed this company was setting an example back, and you get strengthened by that.
Yeah.
When you see other people in the wild.
I'm immediately feeling guilty for Curtis Auto Sales culture. Because we don't do that. We just make fun of each other, fat jokes, and make fun of each other until one of us gets mad.
Curtis Auto Sales culture. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to do more praying together.
I think it was really it was a good thing for me. It was a good thing for me to see, and just living the gospel. It is different, and people I think are going to be facing more and more challenges, and they'll see the little bit of peace that we have. Because we're going to be challenged too. We were talking about that earlier. We're all facing challenges.
Yeah,
we have faced challenges, but there's just that element of like, all right. In the end, it'll be okay. At least it may not be okay right now. It may hurt right now, but in the end, it'll be okay. And I think that passing on that peace of Christ is really the point of living the gospel.
Dan was talking about some of the struggles that he and his family's going through right now, and it really is. If you can look at it as, what are we supposed to learn from this? Like, this is an opportunity for growth. Which I know is so much easier to say when you're not in it, right? We've all been in it, man, and it's like you can go through a faith crisis just because life sucks so hard, like this is so hard. But if you can have that perspective, like, all right, man, my Heavenly Father wants me to grow through this. What are we supposed to learn? And you can look at it that way. I think it helps it go faster, the struggle. And two, like you say, I think it brings some peace, some level of, I don't know, Dan, am I talking out of my keister?
No, I think that's spot on, because, it's interesting because, being a member of the bishopric, like I mentioned before, and, where you're getting a lot of like insight on what people are struggling with, and ways that you can support them and love them, and, and share, Christ-like love with them. It's funny because you would see situations where you're like, well, why don't they just do that? Like that'd fix it. Like, I don't understand why this is such a big deal. You know what I mean? And it's easy to look at it from the outside,
like
looking
that video of the nail.
Yes,
I love that video.
Yes,
you ever seen that? Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like,
and the girl's like, she's like,
It's
this
not the nail.
pain. This pain
Honey, you're not
somewhere around
listening.
here.
Yeah.
You're not listening. I just want you to listen. He's like, okay, and then she's like, and my sweaters are getting ruined. He's just like,
just take the nail out of your head.
Yeah. So then when you're in it and you're like the one that's struggling, or the one that has like a challenge, and we all have challenges, and they all vary from, day-to-day stuff to, tough stuff. And yeah, I think sometimes it's hard to remember when you're in the thick of it that, Heavenly Father loves us, and that's why we go through these struggles. And I think sometimes it's counterintuitive, because, our natural tendency is to say, dude, why am I going through this? Why am I being punished? Why is it? Did Heavenly Father forget about me? Like,
has He forsaken us?
Yeah, like what's the deal here? Like, I've always been a good person. Why do I have to suffer, right? And I don't know. I think if you go back and look at scriptures, the righteous tend to always struggle. Whether it be through persecution, whether it be through trials, whether it be, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard sometimes when I think what you said was perfect when you said, sometimes, you end up having this faith crisis just because things suck so bad.
Yeah.
And it's
like,
true.
You're almost like, I don't even care if this is true. Look at my life right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm LDS, and I pay tithing, and I'm a good person, and look at my life. Yeah. I think everyone's been there. You know, I know Travis and I have both been there, like as good friends that
dude, I don't know.
Seen each other at their lowest. I don't
know what you guys are talking about. I'm barely in the top 1% of the entire world's income right now.
Barely.
So why doesn't the Heavenly Father love me?
I'm sure he's got a reason.
There's probably a lot of them, actually. I wanted to read to you guys, and it's along these lines. I had a companion on my mission. He was my trainer, and he struggled really, really hard with some mental health issues. He was back in the old days, he was like on Prozac. And I just remember that when he was really struggling, he would sing, well, if it'll pull up, I can't quite get the internet apparently. He would sing this song. And I wanted to read the words to it, actually. Let's see here. Okay, are you guys ready for this?
I want you to sing it, honestly.
I'm not going to sing it.
Solo.
Come on, man.
But listen to the words, seriously. Heavenly Father, are you really there? And do you hear and answer every child's prayer? Some say that heaven is far away, but I feel it close around me as I pray. Heavenly Father, I remember now something that Jesus told disciples long ago. Suffer the children to come to me. Father, in prayer, I'm coming now to thee. And I've always loved it because the song is like a progression of, the first one is almost like a blasphemy. I mean, not really, but it's like, it's an if. It's like a, hey, are you really there?
Yeah, really?
I don't feel you. But as you go through the words, and then you start talking about other people say that heaven's far away, and then the principal teaching of Jesus is how the children come to me. Well, we are the children. And then the last line, Father, in prayer, I'm coming out of thee. And it's a great way, I think. And I remember the power of it from my missionary companion, watching him. He really had some mental struggles, but he was a rock. I mean, he really was, but it wasn't because he was just a rock. He had to.
He was probably a rock because he fought these trials instead of just giving up. You become strong.
Yeah.
You know what? And looking back on my life, man, I don't, please, I'm not trying to get any admiration from anyone or anything, but I can say I'm really strong as a person. And it's because I've been through some stuff, man. And I have wanted to give up a lot of times. I'll just admit, like several times I've wanted to quit.
Well, I think it was funny last time you were like in the temple and you're like, how do I escape this place?
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, what is happening in here right now?
Yeah.
We won't get into that.
You hung on.
Yeah, I hung on. No, so yeah, man, when you make it through this stuff, like I said, if you can look at what you're going through, Dan and your family right now, and anyone that's listening, like if you can look at this and go, hey, good news. When I get through this, there is something on the other side. Yeah. I mean, I can share a testimony. I know that. When you get through the other side of that trial, one, you're going to be a better, stronger person. Two, there's more coming. There's like this little cartoon that I love.
That sucks. That part sucks.
It's a guy. It's a picture of a guy, and it says you, and then it's another guy, and it says life. And it just is kicking this guy in the privates. And finally it stops. Mm-hmm. And then the last picture is, wait, there's more. Mm-hmm. And then it keeps kicking you with the crowd. And that's the truth, right? But just like the martial arts guys, eventually you can't even feel that anymore.
I've seen some of those guys that like pick up weights with their junk and all that stuff. It's kind of weird.
Not me.
Not you.
I don't recommend it.
I would say this, and I say this half jokingly, but like let's say that like worst case scenario, I lose my house. I mean, I could like come and live in this where we have this thing, which is
couch is yours.
And I mean, you served in Paraguay. My son Thor describes houses that this would be much superior.
This is upper middle class, bro.
Climate controlled.
Yeah. Cinder blocks are all sealed.
Yeah.
There's no freaking pythons.
How many banana spiders are on your chest every night?
Yeah, there's a couple.
0.
They don't really bite unless you're aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it, man. And again, if you lose your house, like, who cares? Like, I know it's easy to say when it's not you. Who cares? Like, think about what's happening in Gaza. Think about what's happening in Israel. Think about what's happening in Ukraine and Russia and like
Pakistan.
Man, the losing your house is not the worst thing. There's another roof somewhere that you can go stay in that's not being shelled by another country
Glenn,
right
for
now.
Inviting me.
Yeah. Hey, you guys are welcome to the Storage Unit anytime.
Thanks, man.
Podcast, me podcast room, SU podcast room.
Nice.
I have a nice shed and behind my house
You actually
too.
have nicer furniture than me, mostly because my children haven't been here.
Yeah, there's no jam on any of these.
We literally don't even buy new furniture because our kids for like
Yeah,
we just go on KSL. We just go on KSL. Like, well, that'll last for a while.
And you know
that's
what's
the way to
funny?
do
They
it.
move out. Most of our kids have moved out now.
Yeah.
Man, you guys have really nice stuff now.
Yeah, no duh.
Yeah, you don't live here. That's the only reason we got it.
Do you see?
Yeah, do you see why?
There's a
you
cause
don't
and
live
effect.
here. Speaking of, I want to talk about Austin Fife.
Let's do it. Austin Fife. Let me guess who he is real quick. I'm just going to go deep in the well. I think Austin Fife.
Think of another Fife. First Fife to come to your
Okay.
mind.
He was a tight end for Bowling
Barney.
Green.
Barney Fife.
Barney Fife.
I don't know if he's related to him. Who's this tight end for Bowling Green?
I don't even know if that's true. I was going deep.
If you think about probability, just to show my academia, how many people have played at Bowling Green?
Yeah.
Last 100 years? I bet you there's a Fife in there. Producer Dan, can you look up to see if there's a guy named Fife that ever played for Bowling Green?
Dude, what if?
Travis looks like a genius.
What
anyway,
if?
Austin Fife.
It's a negative.
Gosh,
Oh, you already
dang.
looked it up. Okay.
He probably spelled it wrong.
Yeah. PHEI.
PHY. Yeah. Think of like a
not how
LDS
you
Utah
spelled it.
family naming their son Fife.
Yeah. First name Brooklyn.
PHYIEFFV.
First name Brooklyn Madison.
Austin Fife was a guy that he went through a faith crisis. I read his story. It's very similar to what I know mine was and what I think a lot of people's are. He, read the CES letter, which is the one that kind of shocked him the
I still
most.
haven't read it, and
No.
it's weird because I'm kind of like into like weird conspiracy stuff, and
Dude, if you read it, just go read this too.
Yeah.
He wrote what's called the Light and Truth letter. Like he's like, I'm gonna. So he went into the
can you
faith
give
crisis.
us can you give us a pause, Glenn, and just tell everybody 30 seconds or less what is the CS letter?
Yeah, the CES letter is a guy that worked for church education, I guess, and
CS stands for Church Education System.
yeah, church education system, and he, the letter is under this guise of, whoa, poor me, I stumbled on all this stuff you hid from me, and if you could just answer these questions, that's all I need. Mm-hmm. And in reality, when you dig, he just knows he's lying about a lot of stuff, and he's trying to lead people astray.
And who was this guy?
I don't even know his name.
But like, was he?
I think he worked for the church education center, or was a student in college.
And did he stay with the church?
No.
Oh.
And this letter has led a lot of people astray. A lot of people, and getting into stuff. It was again. I've told you this before. I don't believe my faith crisis started with any of this stuff. It started with the place of spiritual. Being down spiritually and weak and not fortifying and then getting hurt and again preparing to lose my son.
Good point. A lot of times I think people will blame, some event that is external. The locus of control it's not my fault. And the locus of control is really always ours. And so if we lose our testimony, it's because of us. Now, not even judging whether it's right or wrong. Fine. If you think that's the truth, it's still your control. It didn't happen to you.
No, it was definitely. I'll take ownership, man. It was my fault, 100%. I was going through some real crap, and real crap happened to me. Mm-hmm. But it's like when Dan was talking about people that go through all these trials. Guys, I've never been through a real heavy trial where I wasn't partially to blame.
Sure.
I love hearing Latter-day Saints talk about how hard it is financially. And every single one that's ever talked to me, I can look at them and go, you didn't follow the prophet.
Well, it is pretty
You
hard.
bought too much house. You're in too much debt. No wonder.
If you have $3,200 of car payments, Glenn, it's freaking hard.
Yeah. Can you believe they want my wife to stay at home? And then she goes and gets in a brand new Escalade that's $1,200 a month. Dude, you don't need that. You don't need any of that. And you didn't need 5,000 square feet. And again, guys, I've done it all, so I'm not judging anyone. Like,
I'll have to tell people like your square footages sometimes.
they've run the gamut.
They are.
They've run the gamut. So, so we are to blame. And so, yeah, that testimony is yours to protect. It should be your most prized possession.
Okay,
and it's
so-
yours to guard and protect. And this guy was much like me, where he was pretty honest guy, a good guy, and he just ran into the stuff at the wrong time. Again, this literature, a lot of it's based on timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just have the most spiritual outpouring of your life, and that night you read the CES letter, it doesn't do anything to you,
Yeah.
right? But if you're a guy who's like kind of on the fence spiritually, and you don't, you're this and that, and
Your wife's mean to you.
yeah, life's down, your wife's being rotten or whatever, and your job sucks, and you're about to lose your house, and then you read the CS letter, dude.
Yeah.
So this Austin Fife, he wrote this book, and if you're an honest seeker, you just get on Amazon, and he wrote a letter called the Light and Truth Letter, and just get on and buy it. I think it was $18 or $28, something, And basically, he takes every bit of that letter, dissects it, and he did what I did, And I love what he says in here. So now he's back in the church, okay? But he says in here,
Austin
Fife, who I don't know him. He just
Did he write the book when he was gone from the church?
no, he's back.
Yeah, so he wrote it when he got back.
This is a result of all of his research.
Okay.
So he did what I did. Remember, I told you I spent about a year and a half where I didn't believe anymore, but I dove into everything.
I remember talking to you at the Denny's, and the lady there that had blue hair and like tattoos all over, was the best waitress ever.
Oh,
She
yeah.
was probably like, "What are those guys talking about?"
In all
This is not-
fairness, 80% of the patrons of Denny's had blue or purple hair that day.
Yeah.
And every day we've been there since.
I do think it's funny because we were in a pretty heavy discussion about a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
we were there for like 4 hours,
Yeah.
and they're just like, "What is
And
going
dude,
on?"
you were going through crap too.
Yeah.
So it's like we just vomited on each other, and you were like, I feel bad telling Glenn this stuff because he looks like he's going to kill him.
Yeah.
He's in a fragile space.
I asked her
and
to
then
take
you were
the
in a
butter.
really hard
I
space.
asked her to take the butter knives away.
Yeah, you're like, hey, we'll just smear this on with our hands.
Yeah, just
Can I have a
remove these.
spork, please?
Yeah.
And we're just smashing it in the pancakes because we can't be trusted with the utensils. Anyway, this guy, he says some things that I want to bring up. Okay. By the way, there was a thank you to whoever left the coffee seas candies. They listened to the podcast and knew that I couldn't drink coffee and I love it. They're like, you got to hear about these.
Yeah,
And
it's a
drop these
workaround.
coffee seas candies. They were amazing.
It's a workaround
Yeah,
on
you
the
can keep your
Lord.
recommend and have coffee. And I'm like, oh man, these are good. Anyway, but then they said, more CES letter, please. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So let's
Okay.
get into some of it. So here we are.
And you're still alive, so it wasn't poison.
Well, I went through 90 units of insulin that night because I'm like, you're only supposed to eat one, but I'm like, blah, blah, blah.
They did try to kill you.
Yeah, they
actually.
did. They didn't know they
Like,
did.
I know he's diabetic.
Don't eat her. So he says one of the first things that opened his eyes, because look, we talk about identity politics and forming teams, and you'll see that I'm at a point in my life where I hate that. Like I hate that everyone's like, I'm pro-Israel and I'm pro-Gaza, and I'm like, let's just be pro-human and say it's really sad that a 7-year-old Jewish kid is raped and a 7-year-old Palestinian child's family was blown up in front of his face. Why are you picking teams here? And we do this in everything in our lives, right? Like, why are we picking teams?
Yeah.
It's like they're probably both screwing up and making mistakes, or both of these political parties in America. I always bring up how I support Donald Trump. I think he's a friggin' moron on, hey, we're trying to cut debt. Let's allot $1 trillion to our military in the budget this year. Hey, moron, we're trying to get out of debt. What are you doing? $1 trillion. You're not. So, no, gosh, if we could just stop picking these teams and being so team, right? This guy was open-minded, and he noticed, instead of immediately gravitating to the team that supported his faith crisis, he was honest and goes, they know they're lying about stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that happened to me. And I'm like, wait.
That devil guy. What's his name? Devlin?
Oh, he talks about him in here. He's like, wait, if your guise of this CES letter is, I just want to know the truth, but you're knowingly putting lies in here, like, then what is this really? It's probably a propaganda piece for somebody who hates the church at this point. And they still might think they're doing right. Like this Austin Fife guy thinks John DeLynn really thinks he's doing the right thing.
I know.
Like, And we'll talk a little bit about why, but
All right, Austin.
so
give us the meat. Give us the
one
meat.
of the things that he gets into is building up versus tearing down. The sheer hatred in the critical community alarmed me, he says. I could not identify with that. It never felt like we were building something, only tearing down. I owed a lot to the church, and even in my worst faith crisis, moments, I felt gratitude for my upbringing, which is kind of how I was too. I'm like, dude, the church was good for me in a lot of ways. Not all critics become bitter, and I applaud those who are not. To be united by hatred, listen to this, to be united by hatred is a quick and easy way to feel unity.
Yeah.
But it is temporary. I could not imagine living my life identifying myself by what I am not, i.e. ex-Mormon. I find so much more purpose in building up. Pessimists rarely build anything meaningful. So he's like, okay, I'm part of this Exmo movement. What are we building? Like they start thinking they're helping each other because they need help to get out of this religion. But he immediately starts seeing these chinks in the armor of their armor,
Just
right?
like me. I mean, I joined a group. It's like we hate Oprah.
I would join that group.
Yeah, but it's temporary.
Yeah. It's temporary.
Yeah.
Above all, I was alarmed by the critic's strategic use of distrust. So again, this is a guy who, while he's in the thick of his faith crisis, this is how his mind's working. If your mind's not working like this and you're in a faith crisis, I've talked to you about mine, how I got out of it. It means you're no longer a truth seeker. You're a seeker of confirmation bias. You're a seeker of,
he's being intellectually honest.
He's being honest as he struggles. Mm-hmm. I was alarmed by the critics' strategic use of distrust. Misguided critics imply to their targets that a doubter's family, you're going to see this a lot in the Exmo world, that a doubter's family and the church will abandon them. These critics calculate the right things to say to influence the victim to see things in their ward and family members that may not even be there, right?
Yeah.
They lead the victim into self-fulfilling prophecy. So in psychology, this is called the personal expectancy effect, right? You create an expectation, and then when it happens, it's just validated truth. Like that's your testimony all of a sudden is that, the word and the church will abandon you.
It's like confirmation bias. Like I remember when I bought, actually from you, Glenn, I bought a Ford Fusion, and it was sharp looking, had dark rims on it.
2.0 turbo, that car was sick.
2.0 turbo. And I was like, I haven't seen one of those. On the way home, I saw 3 of them. You once you become accustomed to something, you buy a yellow Volkswagen Bug, you'll see a yellow Volkswagen Bug. And it's like, if you're looking for people to abandon you, you'll see it. Wherever you're looking for.
That's what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. He talks about how we rarely find something we're not looking for. You know, are you looking for joy? Dieter Uchtdorf talked about that. Are you looking for joy? Okay, so he talks about this. I've interacted with critics for years. Some are well-intentioned and believe they're doing the right thing. From others, I get the impression that misery loves company. For me, that's most of them. You see an Exmo come up with the most outlandish, just bald-faced lie that anyone looking goes, no, that's not the church. I mean, one of them right now, their main 20+ thousand follower influencers in Utah. Her whole thing is how...
Is she the one with the short skirts and all that stuff?
Yeah, now she's real proud of her body and shows everyone because modesty is so bad. So she, married woman, puts herself in her underwear in there. So, but she's like saying the church... So funny that we just mentioned that she gets on there in her underwear and this is her complaint about the church. The church has a culture all the way back from its inception based on sexual predators. Like, dude, really? The church was based on a sexual... Right? So, and this is why there's so much... We talked about last week. There's so much sexual abuse in the church. First off, per capita, as far as organizations go...
It's low.
It's extremely low, right?
Yeah.
And so they do this, but...
And also, again, just like last week, I'm consistent. Murder them. If they, I mean, I got to take that back in case it's legally wrong, but I don't mind if they die.
If
they hurt a child or something like that, it's like I do.
Carte blanche on
Yeah.
Death penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes back to the weapon in Christianity. We all just shoot. No, I feel like I was listening to someone with nothing more than a personal vendetta to disparage the church. Regardless of their personal grievances, my mission was to find more light and truth. And that's what saved me. When I had come to the conclusion, okay, I don't believe this church is true anymore. Again, I knew God was real. So I was like, all right, I have faith he's going to direct me. And that's how this gentleman was. I want to find more light and truth. I'm not going to now make my whole identity, let's fight this evil church.
I will say
his whole identity was, let's find what's real and what's true.
I will say I do have a lot of empathy for people that like the misery loves company thing. And I know that we can say that sometimes to like disparage people or you're looking down on people a little bit. But I'm like that. I am intrinsically like that. If I'm feeling bad and someone else is like, it's not your fault. I mean, how tempting is that?
Oh, sure.
It's not my fault? Tell me more about that, you know?
Hold on. What's the number one line now about exactly what you're saying in our culture? You were born that way.
Oh, yeah. This is just who I am.
Yeah, you're born that way.
This is my truth.
Yep, my truth.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Right there.
It is seductive. I mean, even just saying it now,
Makes it so
playing
easy.
around with it, I'm like, what if that was true? You know, and then nothing really is my fault.
Isn't that great?
Right.
Yeah, it's like amazing. No guilt. So I mean, I get it, and I fight against that. If I'm being honest,
We all do.
Yeah. Some bad happens, and you're like, that's somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some critics, he says, like John DeLynn from Mormon Stories, provide coaching service. Here's what I love. They talk about how our church grooms people. That's all that whole organization does. Yeah, under the guise of, we're here to help you leave the church. Some critics, like John DeLynn from Mormon Stories, provide coaching services for people who have left the church to help them handle the trauma of leaving their church community. Is that a conflict of interest? Is it right for a critic to actively influence a victim into a faith crisis and then charge for groups and counseling services? Tithing's evil. But if you want help leaving your church, it's going to cost you.
That is wild.
Right?
It sounds like USAID, for instance.
I'm a capitalist, so good for him. But
Yeah, good for
it is
him.
weird that the people get seen. I just remember having this cute little old lady on there, and she looked like she just baked a bunch of cookies and had an apron on. Just a typical like Mormon grandma looking lady. And she's like, I remember I went to the temple and no one told me it was gonna be like this is like 50 years before.
Yeah.
And he's like, tell me more.
Yeah.
I just remember him coaxing.
They taught you inappropriately.
And she's like, no, she was kind of like not. It was like she was resisting him. He's like, he's giving her all these off ramps to make it really terrible.
Yeah.
But really, she kind of was just pissed at the church a little bit.
First, who knows what.
Yeah, and then he's trying to like make it this big deal. I was just like, ugh.
Also, is that a conflict of interest, right? Like we talk about that. Is it right? You know,
He's a good salesman, I guess.
he says, I find it deeply immoral for critics to share half-truths and false narratives. So this whole book, you guys, is basically about this CES letter and how freaking all this stuff is they knowingly are just lying about a lot of our church stuff. So, you know, anachronisms. Did you see in one of our videos where we talked about some of the anachronisms? This girl on the comments on YouTube was like, are you going to address these anachronisms? And it's like, no, we might. You know, so we talked about horses. Well, here's proof. And we're like, okay, you could do that. Here's an interesting fact. There's 200 main anachronisms that have surfaced since the church was restored and Joseph Smith made his claims. Do you guys know how many of the 200 still stand?
No.
38. So the antis will not bring up the 162 anachronisms that they have used to bash our religion.
But now they can.
But they can still use those 38 until those are proven wrong too.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
What's an anachronism?
The exact definition of an anachronism, let's see, I'm not a highly intellectual person, but basically
What is an anachronism?
they say it's something is just read it. Like something, it's like saying there's horses in the Americas, but it's an anachronism because in that time there were not horses in the Americas. So it's like, yeah.
So like,
What's the exact definition?
Anachronism is a chronological inconsistency in some arrangement, especially a juxtaposition of people, events, objects, language terms, and customs from different time periods. So like if Joseph Smith creates a book, whether we believe it was by God and
Right,
other people
right.
don't. And he says there's horses in the Americas at 600 BC or whenever the horses were at.
Yeah, there's a
But then now archaeologists are like, we know that it's 600 BC. There were no horses.
that's an anachronism.
So there's a Joseph Smith. Either Joseph Smith's wrong or those archaeologists are wrong.
They make these mistakes in movies all the time. There's anachronisms in movies, right? They'll do a period piece where
Yeah.
a lady's wearing a fashion that's
Not accurate.
Or
Or they'll have a
60
bunch of
years,
50
you know.
1950s cars for a 50s
Yeah.
period, but they'll have a 60 car in there.
Yeah, stuff like that. So the Book of Mormon supposedly, and the famous anachronisms are like steel, barley, horses, all these things. There's actually a
Flocks
graph.
of sheep, like the Ammon garden
Yeah.
flocks of sheep. But for the record, this is one of my favorites because I think it was a flock of turkeys, which I just am fascinated with for some reason.
Well, I mean, who's going to trust the, archaeological industrial complex?
Dude,
Yeah.
don't even get me started on that. That's from our other podcast, Dan.
Dude, so the cool thing about this, if you think about this, is the horses has been proven now wrong, but so has all this other like.
And what you
dude,
mean is-
162 of the
And
200.
what he means is there were horses in the Americas.
There were horses. Do they ever come in and apologize? No, they just keep saying it. Why? Because they count on people in faith crisis to be lazy. They don't count on this guy to do
They're like, look at-
7,000 hours of research.
They're like, look at all of his conviction as he tears apart another religion.
yeah.
He must be right. He has headphones on.
Yeah, which means you're really smart.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it means you're really smart. So he says in here, short, quick, and easy to understand answers are the most appealing at first glance. How true is that in today's culture?
Of course it is.
Dude, yeah.
More so with the advent of social media. When confronted with challenging and unflattering information, it is tempting to accept it. At times, it felt easier for me to say that the church was lying and that Joseph Smith was a fraud. Knowing the whole story, he bolded this, would take too much effort. When I realized this, I started to see how manipulative. This is a guy who's lost his faith in the church, by the way.
Yeah.
And what's making him second guess is the side he's
We should get him
joined
on.
is lying. Oh, wouldn't it be amazing? We need more followers. Yeah, get some followers on here, and this guy will come on. When I realized this, I started to see how manipulative critics of the church can be with the use of the internet. They want to capitalize. Listen to this. They want to capitalize on the natural tendency to want simple answers with little work. Okay? He talks about who has the time, resources, and capacity to become a historian and a scholar overnight. That's the trick. I could feel critics egging me on to shift the burden of proof onto the church during this faith crisis. All the critic has done is share a half-truth with a negative implication. The tactic has a dark motive and is very effective for propagandists. Over time, I found that the negative narratives spun by critics almost always had a good answer. All I had to do was learn more.
Yep.
So, then and we're going to get into some of this tonight because I just think he exposes what he calls, he has it out for John DeLynn, by the way. And and John DeLynn had nothing to do with the CES letter.
Yeah.
He just promulgated the CES letter. He's like, talked about it all the time. So he talks about how he looked at the actual Mormon stories formula. He says, for my part, I believe that John DeLynn thinks what he's doing is right. He's behaving in a way that is logical if someone believes the church is an evil organization that does more harm than good. John makes his lack of divine worldview clear. Angels do not give golden plates to people is a favorite phrase of his. I eventually stopped listening to Mormon stories when I caught on to the formula. The show became predictable. So this is a guy who's lost his faith. He listens to John DeLynn. He listens to anti-stuff. And now all of a sudden he's like, this has shakier ground than the actual stuff I don't believe in anymore. Right? He's like, the show became predictable despite the host's every effort to reassure the audience. Do you recognize this?
Yeah.
John DeLynn's every effort to reassure the audience, we're not trying to convince you to leave the church. I got the impression that I was not hearing the true story of early church events or modern problems. I was hearing the critical, least generous narratives of church issues. Now, here's a great paragraph. Sorry to read so much.
Oh, that's okay.
This strategy can be used to smear any organization. It would be like John starting a channel called Costco Stories. He gives the backstory on the beginnings of the store chain and includes some dirt on the founders. Okay. He highlights products that use the least ethical production methods and makes it sound like these problems are unique to Costco.
Yeah.
It's like these people.
Oh, this is a
There's
good
a
one.
bishop that molested a kid.
Yeah.
Hey, so are you against public education? Because there's been like 80,000 teachers molested. Nope. Just church, LDS church people, right?
Yeah.
So, highlights products that use the least ethical production methods and makes it sound like these problems are unique to Costco, the church. He brings on tearful guests who have had bad experiences shopping at Costco, poor customer service, no return when returns are guaranteed, unfair sample distribution, and a rotisserie chicken incident. They expound on the burden of buying in bulk and how the $1.50 a hot dog drink combo is the leading cause of obesity in the United States.
That's all
and
they get you.
and they coax them in,
Yeah.
and then they go and spend all this
If they
stuff.
loved America, they wouldn't sell it for $1.50.
Right? Podcast episodes are shared in an understanding tone with a seemingly honest telling of actual experiences. I can see it now. Ready? I'm John Boleyn. Ready? So how many of those hot dogs did you eat before your heart attack? Yeah. Here, you be the guest. Yeah.
Gondolin.
Matt David.
Gondolin.
Yeah, do it. Okay, so you're not getting where I'm going. You be John DeLynn.
Oh, I'll be John DeLynn.
Okay.
Gondolin.
I'm so sorry. Don't edit this. This is too fun. Okay. So why you eat those hot dogs before your heart attack? How many did you eat? It's all I could afford, John. So I went to Costco and had $1.50 hot dogs every day.
Gondolin.
Matt David. I'm crying now. I'm sorry. After listening for a month or so, the listener decides to shop elsewhere. The impressionable listener can't put their finger on it, but they now believe Costco is bad for the community and their pantry. The only reason
Do you know what?
the only
Honestly, guys,
reason why this bugs me a little bit is because I hate going to Costco.
I'll tell you one thing right now. F Costco. That's true now. I'm getting rid of my freaking thing.
I see.
Canceling
You know,
my
you read the
membership.
CS letter, you leave the church.
I want them to remove my membership
Yeah.
from Costco and their records.
Yep.
It should save you $50 a year, too.
Yep.
Perhaps so. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting, funny thing.
Great
that he did.
analogy. It's like, are there bad? And it goes to our one of the things I really want us to always talk about is the church is full of weak people that screw up, including myself, and but yet it goes on. I mean, Dan, I love you to pieces, but like a bishopric, it's kind of like you're just a normal guy. And Glenn,
Amen.
Freaking bishopric,
What you talking about, Willis?
you're kind of like insane.
No.
My son, he's like a kid who was like a kid, and then he goes on his mission, and he's like converting people.
You remember,
And it's just like the church is true because the things that are pulling these people away. Okay, I'm sorry, I want a tangent here, but
no, I love it, man.
the very thing that Yandelin would say is wrong with the church of people messing up is the very thing that builds my testimony. I'm like, the church has to be true. I've been in leadership callings and it's still carried on.
Yeah.
My friends also were in leadership. It's just
Not only that, Travis, but you've been in leadership callings, which we all have, where all of a sudden you are 10 times the person that
Sure.
you were the other day because you're doing this calling, and the Lord qualifies who he calls, and all of a sudden some regular dude is doing some very unregular stuff.
Sure.
Miraculous stuff. Man, remember being 19 and having power and authority.
it's true.
And you're like, we're not just regular. We have the priesthood of God. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
The fact that the church is run by regular guys, to me, when I see regular guys doing stuff, superhuman stuff, all the time. And it's like, that's the Lord.
Yeah.
The Lord makes these men and women superhuman.
What's that Book of Mormon story where the Lamanites take the Nephites, or I may be mixing it up, but they're like
one of the ites take the other ites.
yeah, but they're basically have made them slave, and they're giving them a heavy burden.
Grievous to be born.
Yeah, and the Lord
Turns out that grievous to be born burden in one of those chapters was less taxes than we pay now in America. Anyway.
Continue.
But yes.
Had to get that in there.
Anyway, but they made the burden not go away. You know, I can't even formulate a thought now.
No, you're right.
But he didn't make the burden go away. He just made them stronger.
He made it light, right? They couldn't even feel it on their
They
back.
couldn't feel it on their back. They could walk around. They praised the Lord. They were thankful and grateful, and I think that's the beauty of the church of Jesus Christ, and of Christianity. It's like it. Don Williams has a great song called "Stronger Back," and my wife always listens to it. She got me into like country because I used to hate country, but he just talks like I'm not praying for a lighter load. I'm just praying for a stronger back, and I think it's just the tenet of Christianity is like you keep doing it and you keep going. But then you're right. Then like when the Lord qualifies you, you're not doing normal things anymore. You're not doing regular things.
Like to me, that's stuff that I can't deny. I've seen people that are the weakest do amazing things in the name of the Lord, and you're like, holy crap, man, that guy was called. Like he was qualified by God, you know. And I know that I was one of those on my mission, and several times in leadership church roles or just callings, you know, in my life. One thing I remember in particular, I'm a very weak swimmer, and we were in the Provo River, and I told the priest and that I was working with, this is years ago, and the leader's like, I don't think we should go up there. Like I had a feeling or something, and they're like, we've done it 100 times. Anyway, I almost drowned saving this kid. But dude, I pulled this kid. I'm in the Provo River. I pulled this kid, swimming, pulling him across the current, over rocks and crap. I'm bleeding after, like cut up and everything, or this kid would have drowned. And I'm like, that wasn't even me swimming with that kid, dude. Like, you know, and I bring that as an excuse or as an example because like that has happened in non-physical things where you're like, all of a sudden you have the spiritual capacity to understand what someone needs, to be given the answer to fulfill what they need. The same way I saved that kid in that river as his priest quorum advisor, you know, where no one even knew what happened. They were all so far ahead of us, and I didn't tell anyone, but I went home and said, well, I almost died, and this kid almost died tonight. But, you know.
That's why they have you sign the waiver before you go. It's fine.
Dude, I'm the one that almost drowned. Yeah, I'm the one that almost drowned saving that kid.
This kid's telling a story, and I was like, yeah, I was in the river, and all of a sudden Glenn jumped on me, and he almost drowned, and I had to take him to the side.
He's pulling me down, this fat guy.
Well, the funny thing is like,
it's all perspective.
Gentleman.
What makes me think of, sorry, let me rephrase that. What I think of when you're talking about that, like how about qualifying people, you guys can't even keep it straight.
I'm so sorry.
Anyways, I'm trying not to laugh too.
Idiot.
Let me get back to my thought. Okay, I got it.
We're gonna have to edit this.
In all seriousness.
We have to.
In all seriousness, that doesn't help. But no, like it's funny because I think of people from the perspective of like, you know, that maybe don't belong to our church or maybe they've left the church. When they think about qualifying people, there's evidence of people being qualified, you know, or inspired or given abnormal strength. There's so many examples. And my favorite, I'm a big history buff, and my favorite parts of history I like to look about or watch or learn about is how conflicts start and what happens during conflicts. So like World War II, Vietnam War, you know, different things like that. But there's so many amazing Medal of Honor stories about like normal guys doing extraordinary things. And I can, like, when I look at those situations, like I cannot view it any other way than this person was qualified for that moment, that specific action, and they're miracles.
Yeah.
They're absolutely miracles.
Those things testify of God, like even if it wasn't even a religious context or a godly context, right? Like
yeah, and that's
that
the
guy
thing
just saved 15 lives or whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's kind of where I kind of am going with that is, you know, there's times where, you know, I can testify of that too, where I've either been involved or been a part of or seen people do abnormal, extraordinary things that I'm like, whoa, like that right there is like a faith building experience. But then in looking in life in general, I think when you look for, God's hand in all things, like you see it all the time. There's people that do these, extraordinary things, like anything from like, foster parents doing amazing things, and raising kids that aren't their own, or, you have these, super moms that are dealing with, crazy, situations at home, whether they're like a single mom or they're dealing with someone who has special needs, or, there's so many different examples. But I guess where I'm going with this is yeah, I mean, there's a ton of evidence of God qualifying his children for, the trials and the circumstances that they're going to go through, or to, inspire, help other people.
Yeah, it's to the point where, like, what's so cool about the gospel, this line enters my mind all the time. You guys will know it. The prove me now herewith. So we have an opportunity as followers of Jesus Christ to prove him, right? And where do you build testimony? It's in proving him, right? We talked last week, I mentioned, we don't try the Lord enough, we don't make him prove himself through our sacrifice and obedience, I think is how I said it, enough. If you want to know if what Dan just said is true, all you have to do is get involved with the work. That's what's so cool about the gospel, right? And I told this to my son, who, had a really bad high school basketball experience where he could smoke anyone on his team. Every time he was given the chance, he performed, and they just held him down. These grown men, their friends' kids, and they're no one on the team over 5'9", this terrible thing. And I told my son at the end of the basketball season, where he thought he'd have scholarships and everything offered to him. The funny thing is, he already has a couple options, and he didn't even play for his terrible high school team. But I said, son, here's what you learn from this. In life, anybody can hold you down and keep you from accomplishing something in that organization, or there, on that team, or for that company. I remember for King Garth, this is why I'm self-employed. I quickly rose through ranks of management, and all of a sudden I'm being held down by managers that they're taking the credit for everything that I'm doing for the store, right? Increasing sales 30% in 60 days. Probably never been done. It's them. Mm-hmm. And that's cool. I wanted them to get the credit too, but I wanted the pay that I was promised, right? So they're cutting my pay. And I told them, son, this can happen in your jobs. This can happen in high school basketball. It will not happen in the kingdom of God. No one can hold you back from experiencing what producer Dan just said. Mm-hmm. If you want to see you become and do superhuman things, just get involved in the work, man. You go and do it, follow a prompting, do something in the name of the Lord in righteousness when he calls you and it qualifies you. You will feel it, and you will know what I just did was superhuman. We read these amazing books of the guys in the war. Guys, you can experience these things in the work of the Lord just by getting involved. And you'll see it, and that's how your testimony grows. And then you're in your 50s, and you're like, wait, I have a lifetime now of service where I can look back and, dude, I experienced those things dozens of times. They're an anchor to your faith, right? Anyway, you can start now. No matter how inactive you are or how bad your faith crisis is, you want to have a superhuman experience, you want to see God qualify you for something that you don't believe you can do, just get involved, follow a prompting, and go do the work for someone else. I testify you'll see it. You'll see that in your life. Do it.
I love it. And showing up. I mean, if you just show up, that has sometimes you don't have to. I've had experiences where I was even being begrudging in my attitude.
Oh yeah.
And then I show up.
90% of them.
And all this, yeah. And then you show up, and all of a sudden you're just like caught up, and all of a sudden you're just really blowing up, and it's just like, I don't know. You run into a kid that maybe you influence, and you're like, that was a special interaction. So maybe the superhuman thing is, in a way, just getting out of bed, putting your shoes on, and going to work all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have a prayer in your heart, like I've noticed it a lot since my son left and I've tried to do this stuff, man, I've had like really cool experiences with God's children, just putting myself out there now more than ever, like in regular daily life. I'm going to bear my testimony to this guy, and he's probably going to swear at me, and it's awkward. But then all of a sudden you see that guy with a tear in his eye, and all of a sudden he says, dude, this just happened to me a month ago. Tatted up to all the way up his neck, a guy tearing up. Maybe I need to get back to church. And that could have gone the other way, where he's like, get the F out of here. I don't want to hear that. Shiz, da-da-da. No. Maybe I need... And he hasn't come back to church, but you know what? That moment he felt the Spirit, and I was blessed for having the guts to do it.
My wife just went on a vacation, and on a friend of ours from back in the old land, Oregon, he had moved to New Orleans, and good old friend of hers. I think she used to run around and even like go on double dates with him and stuff. But so this was a long time ago, and but she has a friend. So they reached out to him and they're like, "Hey, we should go to church together." And he's like, "Sure, yeah, let's go to church." And they go to church, and it's his ward, and they're like, "Oh, hey, good to meet you." And he's like, "Yeah, this is my ward. I probably should come back to church."
I don't come here.
But that showing up thing, in a way, my wife is like that a lot, where she's almost a superhuman in that. Like, that's just, she didn't hesitate to invite him to church. Not why would she, I guess, but also a lot of people might. Like, I don't know if I should. Or maybe we skip church because we're lazy or whatever. But
got a new boat.
But her just pushing forward like that, and then it creates this missionary encounter, and who knows what the ramifications that will be over time.
Oh, well, you do know. You do know what it is.
Yeah.
It's going to... we had a guy on our mission, dude. His dad admitted to his kid in a letter, I got called to be the bishop, but I turned it down. We bought that boat for family time. True story. We bought that boat. Sunday's the only day we can use that boat.
That boat is gonna sink for sure.
Yeah, brother. Like, you should have taken that call. But no, my family time is more important than a calling from the Lord. Like, I've talked about this. I talked about it. Like, no, man. Again, what did I say last week? I don't care if the calling is, hey, we need you to work one day a week and spend all the rest of the days ministering to these old ladies in your ward. Dude, if you do it, I told you, you'd be okay. Your bills will be paid somehow. You will make it, right? You follow that and you have faith. What the Lord's man is what? The Lord's bound, And so here's a guy that... Anyway, if you feel like... It's so funny to me. Here we are talking about the basic stuff. If you feel like you're nothing special and your life sucks, and man, I just told you what you have to do to realize your potential.
Yeah,
and
I love how you call it being superhuman too. I think that's really critical. I'm curious though. Can we get one more little point from this book?
Yeah.
Before we go.
Okay. Well, yeah. How long have we been going?
About an hour. A little over an hour.
Yeah,
12.
we got 30 minutes. All right. So, one of the big ones that always pops up is, how come there is zero archaeological evidence? Do you see this one a lot? Yeah. There is zero?
It bugs me.
I love that I do these voices for all these folks. I'm really sorry, guys. I know you're probably normal.
And
my voice is weird. You can make fun of my voice all you want.
John Lynn will be like, John Lynn.
John Lynn.
John Lynn.
Yeah.
Aaron?
How could there's zero? You fools! There's zero archaeological evidence.
Genuine.
All right. Well,
I might. Okay. Is it okay if I interrupt really quick on this?
Hey.
Okay.
Anytime.
So, my wonderful mother, who's so supportive of me in all these crazy things. Yeah.
I don't even know her, but I see her comments. She's an angel.
So
Hi, Dan's mom.
I'm going to go ahead and send you guys an image here, a couple, of some of the things that...
Please don't mess up and send the wrong image.
I know. I'm being very, very careful to make sure I do this right.
You talk about that voicemail?
Yeah.
We need you to give the prayer.
Dude, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard. Okay, so I just sent. You guys can pull this up on your phone, and I'll actually pop it up. I'll pull it up on the
where did you
for
send it?
everyone to see as well. I sent it
Text?
to the. It's coming, yeah. It's coming to the extra Mosho text message group that we have.
Okay.
And I'll put these up on the screen so everyone can see them. But there's like 5 photos here. So this is in Mexico, in a museum, and there's a lot of like interesting archaeological finds and historical evidence of things that are spoken about in the Book of Mormon.
Lib and Kish.
Yeah, so I'll kind of explain this really quick. So the first photo, do you guys see the one with the tree? It's got like the red background.
That is the Tree of Life, dude.
It's the Tree of Life, yeah, and it talks about there's like different inscriptions and things like that on there that talk about.
Is that the great and spacious building next to it?
Maybe I don't know.
That would be pretty freaking spot on.
Dude, I'm like, yeah.
But the next image that you're seeing there that has like the libkish. This is the type of what they call this document. But
I feel bad that people can't see. We need tech on the podcast.
Well, no,
They'll see it.
You'll put it.
Yeah, they're gonna see it as
Sorry, we're new. I'm new.
In posted, they'll see it.
It's like, that'd be cool. I'm going to fax you instructions for that later.
Cool is you have modern technology allowed pictures on it.
Hey, check your pager.
Yeah. But the next one here is the writing that's on this wall and on these tablets.
What are those? Cement tablets, slabs?
So yeah, they're rock. And if you go to the next image there, you can see them a little bit better. But they basically talk about, a lot of the same things that are in the scripture. And in this specific image, it talks about.
So you mean by the scripture? You're saying the Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon, right? And in this specific tablet, this one that you can see the inscriptions better. It actually uses the translated words of "and it came to pass" multiple times.
Dude.
So the similarity that you hear that in the Book of Mormon all the time, and it came to pass, and it came to pass, it's on this same inscription on a different tablet unrelated to the Book of Mormon. But then if you go to the next image, you can see one where it looks like these people are coming out of almost like a hole.
Yeah.
That's a barge.
No.
And this is an actual drawing, and this image is over 2,000 years old. And then go to the next image.
It's
Jaredite barge.
Yeah.
tight like unto a dish.
Yeah, where's the rock for the light, dude? Look for a rock.
Okay.
Oh my
Dude,
God.
he's holding one.
Okay, hold on.
Bro.
I was going to point that out. So if you notice, the people that are walking out, there's a guy that looks like a stick, and he's got this round object that he's using, and he's leading the people out of this barge.
Like the
Liahona.
Liahona.
Oh, I'm thinking the rocks that they used to light the barges, though.
No. That's what is believed to be the Liahona. And there's multiple images. I'll pop all of them up here. I didn't send all of them because there's too many.
Wow.
Yeah.
But there's tons of images of leaders of these tribes, these prehistoric, or not prehistoric.
And there's some writings on a golden plate.
Yep, yeah. And that
so just so you know, Brigham Young, that's where he got the idea that he shouldn't have the priesthood.
Let's see.
that little, I see what you're saying, the little guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, little darker color.
That was there where the idea came from.
Yeah.
He was wrong. He was wrong, maybe.
Yeah. But that golden image of that golden plate, this is proof and evidence that back then they were using gold to make inscriptions and to document things.
So you can't honestly say there's zero evidence because you just showed us one.
And I'll pop up more on the screen so that all of our followers can see.
But there's zero evidence, man.
Yeah, zero evidence.
I love that.
But there's tons, and I'll populate all of them onto the screen. But there's tons of images of that Liahona. It's all over the place in these images. But the point I guess I'm trying to make, and I thought this would be a cool way of sharing it, because these are images that my mom actually took when she went on this tour.
Pictures
of historical church related evidence or things that are obviously may not be direct evidence, but it's definitely supports the idea of
isn't that evidence?
yeah
That's what the things that support aren't evidence, but the things that have nothing to do with anything that goes helps justify their position on something that is evidence. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? That's amazing. And yeah, post those pictures. But guys, there is literally a ton of archaeological evidence. You know, you talk about the writing on the gold plates. Do you realize he was mercilessly attacked for that? You can't write on gold plates, freaking idiot, Joseph Smith, you know, for a long time.
Right.
They have found thousands of plates with sacred texts on them now.
Oh,
Gold, copper, brass, like all over the world.
It kind of makes sense.
Sure. Thousands, you know. So let's start with the frankincense trail.
All
Okay?
right, let's hear it.
Lehi takes his family in the wilderness out of Jerusalem in 1 Nephi chapter 2, verse 5, near the shore of the Red Sea. This journey, as described in the Book of Mormon, has been a subject of scrutiny. However, long after the Book of Mormon was published, we're going to say John Urin every time that it's like Joseph Smith was the luckiest fortune teller of all time. John Urin, okay? Has been a subject of scrutiny. However, long after the Book of Mormon was published, historians made a significant discovery, the frankincense trail. The trail was in use in Lehi's day and fits the description of Lehi's journey out of Jerusalem. Details such as the Valley of Lemuel, the Laman
And it
River,
makes sense
and
that
the
he would follow that
decreasing
too.
fertility the further south Lehi's family traveled all align with the frankincense trail.
Yeah.
Okay? If Joseph Smith made up 1 Nephi, how did he know about this viable path along the Red Sea heading southward? How did he know it was in use in Lehi's day? It's been proven it was used then. And how did he correctly identify the details of landmarks, water features, and vegetation? John Urin.
I've
I think
heard
it's Johnny.
I've heard that like farmers back in his day, super duper intelligent, like super smart, very versed in historical information. Yeah, totally common.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
He
they were
probably
the
checked
ones.
his
They were the
GPS
ones
satellite.
that the scientists and
She pulled up Google Earth.
yeah, they all went to, and they wanted one of the third grade education or lower, and they'd
Right.
go to them for all this knowledge. Yeah.
I remember this frankincense trail is kind of interesting too because there's like even the parts that were fertile and not it's in
It's all
sequential.
exactly as laid out in the Book of Mormon. The
that's-
distance traveled to get there, everything.
But that's going through Saudi Arabia, and there's an interesting find that it hasn't been. It's controversial still. There's people that say it's nothing. It could have been fake even, but like a Christian group was going to do some stuff. Do you remember us talking about this?
Yes.
And in Saudi Arabia, they found gold plates.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And, now that they're saying, well, I don't know. Who knows, right? I don't know, but it would make sense.
Zero archaeological evidence. Well, there's some.
There's evidence.
And there's some that his mom found. The
Yep.
expert, Dan's mom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's super, high in archaeological circles.
World renowned.
Yeah.
Nahum. What about Nahum? In 1 Nephi 1634, Ishmael dies and his family.
One second before you do that, though. But the anachronism is they were saying that his path doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, that dude never happened in the desert. Yeah.
They're like, his path.
Literally, there's a trail. Yeah,
Yeah.
John Urin.
Yeah, okay.
So Nahum. 1 Nephi 1634, Ishmael dies and his family buries him in a place called Nahum.
Okay, what's the anachronism that we're addressing here?
Well, just the fact that, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Nahum stands out. At other points in their journey, Lehi names locations as they pass them, like the river Laman. But when they get to Nahum, the scriptures say, and it came to pass that Ishmael died and was buried in the place which was called Nahum. The implication is that this place was already called Nahum before Lehi's family arrived. In 1990, archaeologists excavated an ancient temple in southern Arabia and found an inscription of a man belonging to the tribe of NHM. Other ancient altars have subsequently been found, confirming
No
the existence
way.
of Nemites dating to or before Lehi's time. Many ancient Near Eastern languages do not use vowels. So translators interpret, non-LDS people, folks, translators interpret NHM today as the following options. These are non-LDS translators. NIHM, NAHM, NAHAM, NEHM, and NAHOM. Nahum. Yes, that Nahum. The Nim region is the homeland of the Nim tribe located along the southern border of the Wadi Jaf in modern-day Yemen. In antiquity, the region's trade routes from the north would have led into the Wadi Jaf near Nim. Additionally, near the Nim region lies thousands of burial mounds, including the largest known ancient cemetery in all of Arabia, where they probably buried Ishmael.
Dude,
That's so crazy.
come on.
Yeah, so zero archaeological evidence. I don't know. Zero. So you guys that get on there and every day, where's your archaeological evidence? We're covering it now, and there's more, and there's plenty more. We just don't have 50 hours.
And Glenn,
Yeah.
remind everybody again what book it is that you're reading from.
This book is
Austin
called
Fife.
Light and Truth Letter
By Austin Fife.
by Austin Fife.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. How did Joseph Smith know about the ancient city of Nahom from 1830 resources? It's impossible. How did he predict the name and location of Nahom so accurately?
Genius.
After
Told you
Nahom,
guys.
Lehi's family traveled nearly eastward from that time forth in 1 Nephi 17:1. That's an interesting detail in the Book of Mormon.
That is
The
because they don't really talk much about it. I've thought about it, but it's included in there.
Sure. Nearly eastward. That is an interesting detail. The main ancient trade routes turned eastward at the Wadi Joff. I'm probably saying that about as well as
Perfectly,
I said.
you mean.
Viceroy.
Yeah.
Viceroy.
Viceroy.
I'm not in any intellectual. Turned eastward at the Wadi Joff near Nim. This was the only area where nearly direct eastward travel was possible. Even possible.
That's right. I actually watched a little documentary on this now that it's coming to my mind. And yeah, there's parts where you just can't travel because it's too high. There's cliffs, there's deserts that are impassable. And it's
Yeah.
like they hit this
They
spot.
had to go eastward.
Yeah.
Joseph guessed that too.
He's
That
so
locates
good.
Nahom of the Book of Mormon in the ancient world in the right spot on the map from which traveling nearly eastward became possible. How did he guess that? What are the odds of that happening?
Pretty low.
So, this keeps going. In Hebrew, the root of Nahom means to groan. The Book of Mormon records that at Nahom it came to pass that the daughters of Ishmael did mourn exceedingly because of the loss of their father. This could be a clever play on words for Nephi to co-opt the name of the NHM stonemasonry territory where his father-in-law is buried in the records NHM
'Cause they're
to
groaning.
groan, Hebrew narrative. How proficient was Joseph Smith in ancient languages in 1829? So we've got the frankincense trail. We've got Nahom. We've got bountiful. Arabia is bountiful in sunshine, petroleum, sand, heat, and fresh air, but certainly not in much fruit and wild honey, nor has it been since the creation of time. That's Thomas Key in 1985. Critics mocked the Book of Mormon for describing a land on the coast of modern-day Yemen that had much fruit and also wild honey. 1 Nephi 17:5, Joseph Smith's contemporaries understood that region to be a sprawling, never-ending desert hellhole. In 1976, explorers discovered a widely unknown part of Oman that fits the description of the Book of Mormon's bountiful in the Old World. Kor Karfat and Kor Rory in Oman are both great candidates for the bountiful in the Book of Mormon. They have fresh water, large trees, fruit, and vegetation. They also have mountains for Nephi to pray, it says in 1 Nephi 17:7, or for tool making, 1 Nephi 17:10, cliffs by which Laman and Lemuel threatened to toss him into the sea, 1 Nephi 17:48, and also seashore for a boat launch into the ocean. Additionally, Dr. Rick Hawk discovered the remains of what seems to be an ancient temple in Kor Karfat. The site of the sanctuary is the same size and proportion of the Temple of Solomon. It faces due east, as Hebrew law would say it should, and its proportions resemble those of the Temple of Solomon. He suggests 14 correlations between the Kor Karfat sanctuary and the Temple of Solomon. Further, non-Latter-day Saint biblical scholar Zion Zevet suggests Eden is an ancient Semitic name meaning bountiful.
Missouri.
Bountiful.
Missouri.
A fitting end in the old world to the 8-year exodus of Lehi's family. How did he guess that there was a region eastward from Nahom on the coast of modern-day Oman that is lush and green? How did Joseph guess that? John Yaman. Isn't it lucky that a place like that even exists in that area? John Yaman. And it fits the geographic description of bountiful in the Book of Mormon. How did he know this fact so contrary to the conventional wisdom of his day? How did he get so lucky
That is
to
true,
predict the location
He
of
probably
bountiful?
couldn't even envision what the Arabian Peninsula even looked like.
Yeah,
you know
like,
what I mean?
what
It's
did he know?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there weren't maps readily accessible, and then to think of that, I mean, I can't even envision it without
Well, just
Google Maps.
even envision it, now. Could you imagine like an average person like me, right? going to such lengths and research and
Without computers, he's 14.
yeah. And I'm
he
talking
knew
like
the customs and geography of Lehi's day,
Yeah.
and he produced an account which every geographical and customary detail is accurate, plausible. Yeah, how did Joseph? I mean, come on, you're saying guys, you get on my pages and they're. How come you can't provide any guys? Just what I've shared right now, and there's pages more. I just gave you enough evidence that you can no longer say there's no archaeological evidence. First off, archaeology isn't science, okay? For example, he talks in this book about places in Tibet where during stories of elephants, there's zero evidence of elephants during those years. That he talks about, especially in this side of the world, the evidence, which there's a ton, it is even more susceptible to erosion and things because of the weather. Think about where the Book of Mormon probably took place, and think of the weather.
Yeah.
You ever been to Central America? You ever been in a torrential storm in the Amazon?
Even if it was in North America where the Great Lakes were, it's like, even if because that's one of the ones.
Well, it's one of the
rains.
more plausible ones lately because they found all these mounds, right?
Yeah.
You've looked at that?
Well, actually,
Oh,
my mission in
so
Ohio,
cool.
dude.
So cool.
I'm actually, that's my number one thing. I've been to a place called Xenia, Ohio, and you pull into town, and there's a mound, like that has a roundabout around it, and it's just part of the Xenia, Ohio, and it's full of bones, dude. And I'm just like, that was a freaking pile of humans.
Yeah.
At one point.
Yeah.
Okay, listen to this. Renowned Mayan archaeologist George Stewart, the late George Stewart, admitted in a 2011 interview with National Geographic, there's almost 6,000 archaeological sites that we have found so far. Guess how many? This is 2011. Guess how many that they have dug at? Not even that they've completely dug. Out of 6,000.
I remember watching someone rage about the fact that we've only done it's on that Netflix special actually with who's the guy that talks about the
Oh, you're talking about the
Graham Hancock.
Yeah, the apocalypse.
Yeah, it's a thing on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool actually, and that's more archaeological.
Yeah, it's like ancient
apocalypse.
Yeah, that's what I think it was called.
On Netflix, and
Apocalypse.
he's talking about it's like this travesty because it's like 1% or less than 1%.
It is. It's less than 1%. So out of 6,000, they have dug at, not completely dug, guys. Just started.
Yeah, turned
40.
dirt. Yeah. Okay.
Holy cow.
That's less than 1%.
I feel pretty good about our odds that all the anachronisms are going to be addressed.
Oh, dude, we're down to 38 out of 200.
And we got 6,000 more sites to dig at.
Suppose I were to tell you that a man
insane.
surveyed
You can hear the
2% of the
footsteps
geography of the United States.
Sorry, say it again, Glenn.
Yeah, suppose I were to tell you that a man surveyed 2% of the geography of the United States.
Jeez.
And then he made the unequivocal assertion that there are no large lakes in the United States. No Everglades, no mountains above 10,000 feet, no redwood forest, no volcanoes, no gold mines. Because in
It would be
his
true.
2% survey, he didn't see any of those things. You would likely respond, how foolhardy of him to categorically state there's no such thing when 98% of the United States has never been seen by him. Likewise, how foolhardy to unequivocally claim that there were no horses, cattle, steel, and Nephite names in Book of Mormon lands and times, when at least 98% of archaeological remains in ancient America have not been unearthed.
And that's 98% of the ones we've discovered. There could be more
Sure.
that are undiscovered. Well, it's like, have you seen that awesome picture? It's a great one about people post it all the time for making fun of people who argue on Facebook, And it shows these two blind guys. One guy's he's feeling the elephant and he feels its trunk, and he's like, an elephant is like a snake, and an elephant is very similar to a snake. And then the other one is grabbing his rear leg, and he's blind. He's like, an elephant is like a tree. And they're both feeling part of the elephant that's true, but they come up with different conclusions. And it's the same thing.
I want to draw one where they're both holding one of Oprah Winfrey's legs.
And they're like, she's like a tree.
An elephant.
It's like a tree, but almost like a bowl of pudding too.
But it smells like cocoa butter.
But she's married to an astronaut.
Stedman?
No, Gail.
Okay. Sorry, guys, we get loopy. I don't think people know what time at night we record this.
Stedman's a fill-in, bro.
Well,
Come on.
lucky guy.
Yeah.
Lucky guy.
Yeah.
Guys, critics mock Joseph Smith because the Book of Mormon talked about an advanced, numerous, and ancient American people who built large cities, temples, fortresses, and highways. I mean, dude, mercilessly for decades. Isn't it interesting that the fortifications described in Alma 4850 match fortifications of a similar nature among pre-Columbian Native Americans, including the Mayans? Earth heaped up in a ridge or wall around the city and dirt displacement, creating a ditch around the outside of the wall, a timber palisade on top of the earthen wall, and towers above the timber picket with bastions atop the
There's
tower.
a couple of those in Ohio. For the record.
Proof. How
Yeah, for the
fascinating is it that recent findings validate the depiction of the world in the Book of Mormon? But is it worth noting that a 23-year-old farmer produced a book of scripture with what was considered outrageous claims about indigenous American people, and those claims are proving more correct with each passing year 200 years later? And then they want to get on every day and say, and then he goes off on LIDAR, the destruction of indigenous people and culture.
Oh, the LIDAR is so
He just,
cool.
guys, page after page after
Maybe
page
throw
after
a
page.
pickup of the LiDAR of the new city they found in Brazil.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
dude,
pull it
that's
up.
insane.
Yeah.
So, you know, and this, guys, this doesn't prove the church is true.
And again, any of this stuff could also be proven wrong. Like this stuff is currently true.
Sure.
That's why you can't base your
But
testimony
it's
on
like
it.
the Egyptologists that came out and said, those papyri don't mean what he said. Ha ha, proof he's a liar.
Yeah.
And now there's Egyptologists that are going, actually, we found more stuff that shows what those are saying. And they're actually saying this, which basically is what Joseph Smith said. And it's like, so guys, if you're looking for evidence, evidence is always changing. It's always popping up and going away. But it is cool. It is exciting to see that there's tons of evidence that, guys, I don't care what the crap your theories are on Joseph Smith. There is no way in hell that he just came up with all this stuff. And there's all these evidences for it. There's just not, you don't get that. That's not ever going to happen.
Right.
I think it's hilarious how in the gospel of Jesus Christ, in the restored church of Christ, this stuff is so outlandish and crazy. But I want you to think, and this is just my mind going off here now that I'm full of 24 ounces of white monster.
Let's
okay?
go.
So I want you to think of a group of people that are just lost and they don't know what to do with their lives. And like you talked about, what if you presented, to your brother that the church was like a spaceship and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you come to this group of people and you're like, hey, I have this crazy story, and you just tell them this story and you just make up all this crap, and then 200 years later, everything you said is just like, here's all the evidence that this stuff is real. If you came up and showed them all this stuff, and let's not fast forward 200 years. Let's say you came at them with a new book. Let's say you came at them with your Book of Mormon today or whatever, and then all this evidence was around to back you up now. Dude, people would chomp at the bit to believe that. Do you realize the stuff that people chomp to believe just for one morsel of truth? They gravitate to these whole groups.
Well, dude, Glenn, there's a book that was written in like 1890 that talks about Barron Trump. That's a true story. You can look that up.
John Doan. So my point is like that, guys. Everyone's looking for something to grab onto without 1/10 the evidence that there is for the restored church.
Sure.
But they're like, oh, I like that, and there's this smidge of evidence, so I'm going to grab it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to change my whole life, and I'm going to follow it. But as soon as it comes to the restored gospel of Jesus Christ, they're like, no, man, that's crazy.
Like,
and you're like, but there's
John
mounds of
Delan.
evidence. Nah.
John
It
Delan.
requires me to change my life. It requires me to sacrifice something. I don't know, man. I think it's,
read that book. It requires me to read that book.
so that's what's amazing to me. All the research that I went and did, I didn't even have to. This guy just puts it in a book. He went and did it all, and then he just puts it in a book. If you're struggling and you've read the CES letter, Light and Truth letter by Austin Fife, is I think you should read it. It's, guys, I read it in like 2 nights. It's not, but does it prove anything? No. I'll tell you what it does prove. It proves that anti-Mormons are lying and they know it. Mm-hmm. It proves that Mormon stories lies and they know it. Mm-hmm. It proves that the CES letter included tons of lies. He talks about how the first part of the CES letter, guys, is the Napoleon book and the view of the Hebrews and all this stuff. He goes through every one of those. And it's literally disproven now. And yet it's still in the CES letter. It was disproven before the guy. So I mean, you'll say the church lies to you, and you can't find the lie. But there's a guy exposing that the movement that's making you question your faith is purposely lying to you, and we just look the other way. Come on, guys. Prove the church lied to you. They didn't.
Glenn, let me ask you something. Do you mind sharing with me and us, just the Extra Mo
family.
You told me something really powerful. And I think about it all the time. How it's like you were going through this crisis, and you were reading all these books, and you're like, God, I've read everything. What? And I still don't have an answer. What should I read? Do you remember telling me that?
Yeah, I think we even mentioned it in one of these episodes. So for someone who's active in the church to go over a year without ever feeling the Holy Ghost, it's the worst year of your life. Dan, talk about people losing their homes. Talk about people losing even family members. And I was preparing to lose one. When you don't have any spiritual nourishment, no matter how hard you try, I get emotional about this because I know my Father in heaven wanted to help me. I know that he was kind of up there like, oh, poor Glenn, man. But he didn't. For me. He let me grovel and suffer for so long, you guys. And I mean, I punched holes in walls of my house, screaming F-bombs. I screamed at my Heavenly Father, stuff that I've repented for as I watch my son slam into the wall, bite his tongue. I'm in a faith crisis. I can't give anyone a blessing. I don't believe in anything. I think my wife's going to leave me. Dude. And he just watched as it happen. For over a year, almost a year and a half, you guys. I'll say this. I hadn't prayed in a while. Sincere prayer, like I gave up on it because it's just nothing. He gave me nothing. And he doesn't do that to me. I'll just let you guys know, I'm a person that my entire adult life, I have felt the Holy Ghost and known it at least once, twice a week my whole life. I've been anxiously engaged in my callings. I go to church. I seek the Spirit in church. This was a dark, dark time. And this guy talks about that dark time. And like I said, I've been very compassionate about people in that dark time. And I finally get done with all these books, and I've got books. My wife literally, I think of poor Ann. She's looking at this weird, angry butthole of a man who's just ready to fight anyone at any given time and just pissed with books piled all over his house. Don't interrupt Dad for the next 5 hours. Slam my door. I'm studying every day for a year, dude. I can't even imagine what my wife was thinking. Do you have to go to work? Screw that place. I don't even give a crap anymore. And I'm studying, all this stuff I was doing. And I'm in my office. And I'm pissed, and I'm like, I don't even know what else to read. I think I've gotten everything. Out of all the anti-Mormon stuff, I'm like this guy. There was like 3 things I couldn't answer. One of them will bother me till the next life. I'll never even bring it up because it's a point that could make someone doubt. But I did know that I had this flood of anti-Mormon stuff that I got to the bottom of almost every single piece of it. Like this guy, and he provides the evidences for you. It's all condensed in this book. It's Austin Fife, thank you, dude. I can't even imagine. I'm not an intellectual, so to put something together like this would literally be impossible for me.
Right.
I'm like, I sell cars. I make funny voices about John Glenn. This guy is like smart. He puts all this together for you. But there I am, and this is before this book, and I've read everything you can imagine, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, maybe God could give me a hint on what to read. So I'm in my office, and I just start praying at my desk, and I'm crying as usual, just pissed and forsaken, and he's ignored me for so long. And honestly, I'm like, if there is a God, he doesn't care about me anymore, dude. He just, I really got to the point where I'm like, I have pissed him off somehow. And whatever, I deserve whatever's coming, is where I was at, like, whatever. Plain as day, man, in the middle of my prayer. Read the Book of Mormon. And I'm like, I don't even believe in the Book of Mormon. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait. I mean, it had been dead to me. I'm like, wait, I recognize that.
That feeling.
That was a voice from God. So I pick up my Book of Mormon, dude, and just start with I, Nephi, having been born of goodly parents. And it just freaking pours that I hadn't got. Do you know how sweet the Spirit feels when you have wanted it for a year and a half? And like, man, I didn't even have to get all the way through it. I'm like, dude, what have I done? Like, what have I done to my kids? So immediately I started thinking, what have I done now? I've let my family down. I've let my wife. What irreversible damage have I done to my family by being an asshole for a year and a half? And what could I have done on my wards? And I started feeling all this repentance and everything. And then I worked through it. And it honestly got to the point where I was like, Dan, what I told you today, what I told you guys at the beginning, oh, I had to go through this. This was for my good. This was for the good of my family.
You know what? I appreciate you sharing that. You told me that the first time, and it really struck me, and I've thought about it a lot. And I don't think it would have worked any other way. Especially, just
Not
it's
for
easier
me.
to look at other people. Yeah, so I'm watching you from the outside, and from what I know about you, and that was the path. And I've actually used this with. I have loved ones that have kind of walked away from the church a little bit, and I think of you often as an example of like they're where they're supposed to be. They're in a path of maybe it's even safety for them through ignorance while they struggle.
The 500-year plan, dude.
Yeah, the 500-year plan, exactly. Where, in 500 years, where will we be? And hopefully it's resting with God. And so
This place where they are will help them. I'll tell you, if I hadn't gone through that, I don't know who I'd be today. Like,
yeah,
it was good for me. What I always say is what I went through for that year and a half. Please, I'm not saying I'm strong. I'm not, but it scares me to death that my kids might have to. I don't know very many people that would have kept going, and I did because I guys, I had to know. Like, I'm like Brother Fife, man. I'm like, oh, okay, God, I know you're real, so let's get to it. If the church isn't true, you're going to tell me what to do, and I am brave enough and strong enough to do whatever you want. But I got nothing, man, because there was nothing, you guys. Yeah. There was nothing. It's the gospel. It's the restored church of Christ. And so I fear for anyone that's going to have to go through that, because just don't quit. I'm just begging you. Year and a half and a 500-year plan is nothing. Fight for your testimony. Fight for it. If you need some evidence, get some evidence. But fight for that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I love it. I think that I think it's a killer story. I think we should pause there. And I say pause because I think we're just picking up steam. It's becoming more clear to me what I think our mission is and our vision here. And we'd love to have fun. The Extra Mo show. It's obviously a play on words, but we need your help. Comment, like, subscribe, share. We want to build a community here. I personally, I won't go very long, but I think that I think that they've been telling us forever, this is the end times. It's becoming more apparent that those things are true. It's like the space between wild events that are marking the end of times is getting shorter. And so we need to be a strong community. We need to have support for each other. And I really would love to hear from you guys, like some of your testimonies. Additionally, just a special shout out. We'd like to maybe interview some people that have interesting conversion stories, challenges they faced.
Yeah, if anyone's
get
left
to know them, left the church,
left
and
come back.
Yeah.
Those are such interesting stories.
And we love you guys. So like, subscribe, share, comment, and we will see you next time.